Sure, it was fun to bust open the door, like people do in those FBI memes, but the appeal was short-lived. Welcome back, everybody. It's Paul Magov here with Train Valley 2. First things first, I want to say that I finally got the 5th star on the drainage level, and I wasn't sure I would achieve that the other day considering how rough it was. Tangents aside, let's jump into the video with the level for Switzerland. Normally, I would have a webcamera recording my first-hand reaction to 2 levels in the game's main campaign in a vlog format. But if the degree of difficulty for the levels in the Electrical Age were a hike along the gradually sloped plain, traversing the last 2 levels would be analogous to stumbling into the sheer face of a great mountain without footholds. Kind of like the mountains in this level. This would mean that the video of these 2 levels combined would take up more time than I could be bothered to edit, and likely more time than anyone would care to watch. So I took the courtesy of recording a separate voiceover to accompany this game footage, which also has the added benefit of better gameplay overall and more coherent commentary because I'm not juggling 2 or more tasks simultaneously. On top of that, the playback speed of the footage you are watching has been adjusted to match the length of the voiceover because there was not enough for me to talk about that would fill the whole 14 minutes of footage. Will this be the format future episodes will follow after the drainage level? Probably not, because the difficulty curve posed by the degree of spatial awareness needed to complete these 2 levels are anomalously greater than previous levels, and I doubt the difficulty curve of future levels could get much steeper than this. Aside from that, let's get into some updates. The weekend for the 2nd and 3rd of March marks the first toy show I saw this year at the county fairgrounds. The same fairgrounds I went to the week prior for the train show I mentioned in a previous episode. As such, the same traffic congestion issues from the previous week were rediscovered and avoided. Specifically the traffic conflict associated with Cirque du Soleil's Volta tour performing just across the street from the fairgrounds, which was busy enough since it hosted 3 conventions that weekend. I almost got stuck in the traffic jams jutting out of the parking lot, but I had driven over on my own this time and decided to pull over a few subdivisions prior to check the meaning behind some dummy lights that lit up on the way there. The dummy lights that showed looked more ominous than they usually do, so I thought it fit to assess how bad my predicament was. It turned out the central battery to our 2006 Toyota Prius was acting up again, and the engine was critically low on motor oil, so I had to hitch a ride for the last leg of the trip just to play it safe. I exited my ride across the street to avoid the line of cars jutting out of the parking lot I mentioned earlier from the fairgrounds, and never had to face that traffic conflict again. My parents later brought the car over to the dealer to ensure it would not croak on us, since the main concern was the fear that it would be driven somewhere, turned off, and never be able to be turned back on again. This was not the first time the main batteries of the hybrid system was acting up, however, since it had been worked on only a few months ago. But it was strange to find the battery acting up once again, and the plan for this weekend is to have the whole battery replaced in its entirety. This can be done because the battery was still under a newer warranty established during the battery's previous servicing. I had come early for this toy show, for once, because I wanted to take some initiative in my life, and to make sure I had the chance of seeing everything before the stands were picked clean of their precious reserve of Lego sets. What I did not expect was a huge line of people buying tickets at the door for the early bird special and otherwise, a line which lasted well until noon. This was evidence that the convention had better attendance and more foot traffic than ever before, which was corroborated by the crowded aisles and some overheard conversations from certain purveyors. It was a good day in my assessment because I found goods much cheaper than I normally would elsewhere, and my over-preparations for the occasion ensured I was ready for anything. Sure, there were fewer Lego sets than previous shows. The handles from the bag I was carrying dug into my hands and I misplaced my umbrella for a short time, but I truly appreciated the day's outcome. The highlight for my day, aside from the discounts, was the fact that I managed to find the umbrella again, and because I managed to keep my appetite at bay with the food I had prepared, without resorting to eating my canned sardines. I had only brought them since there were no other non-perishable sources of protein in the household that would be suited for a trip to that convention, and obviously I could not eat what was sold there without the risk of some inflammatory response associated with my food sensitivities. Yes, if there was anything that could have ruined everyone else's day, it would have been that fish. So I was glad I didn't have to open it up inside to the chagrin of the convention goers, nor outside where there were no seats and the frigid temperatures were unrelenting. It was also nice that someone gave me a seat to have my lunch, though I wished I could have more formally thanked her than I did before she left. The plan from there was to put the sets I had just gotten at the convention for sale online at a price lower than the competition, because any sets I could have formed a serious emotional attachment with were not sold at the show to begin with. I admit the outcome has not gone as planned so far. My first posted listing was a mint condition haunted house set, numbered 10228, which ranks as the 18th most wanted set in the reference catalog statistics over at bricklink.com. I set the price lower than the competing American listings on eBay and Bricklink, but currently there are still no takers. Yes, I will leave a link in the description below the video to the eBay listing. And no, don't feel pressured to get it yourself unless you really want to. After all, it is flippantly expensive. Perhaps I should not be so worried about how long the listing stays up, despite that being part of my very nature. But let's just hope it does not wind up like that unused biology textbook from that semester I took off, because that never sold despite being relisted for over 6 months. Sunday the 3rd was uneventful, with only one exception at the pharmacy, where the saga for sustaining a hold on my parents' insurance policy after turning 26 continued. After having my insurance cover everything short of the co-pays during the month of February, after my 26th birthday in January, I thought I was in the clear, and I had vocalized some degree of limited confidence in the past. But the pharmacy visit was a humbling experience, because the insurance didn't go through. The saving grace might have been the massive discount offered by the pharmacist who was serving us, because this alleviated some of the pressure associated with healthcare fees until either my old coverage is restored, the paperwork for COBRA goes through, or I get a full-time job with medical benefits, the last of which would be the most ideal outcome. Speaking of jobs, some obligations have been met in trying to find a permanent occupation, and the rehabilitation facilities encouraging me to succeed in that respect are doing their part. More work needs to be done on a default cover letter, however, but aside from that, I applied for more positions over the course of this week, and there will be plenty more applications where that came from. Not many of the events occurring since the last posted video can be considered truly ordinary, but there are some other miscellaneous events worth mentioning that happened this week. The first one that comes to mind is the replacement of the front door's handle, whose inner workings no longer allowed smooth movement when opening or closing, so it would always be jammed shut, even with the handle turned. This would go on for several weeks until new parts arrived. A few screws later and the handle mechanism was replaced with one that actually works properly from the start and actually feels good to actually use. Nobody in the family as a result will have to force the door open again anytime soon. Sure, it was fun to bust open the door, like people do in those FBI memes, but the appeal was short-lived.
FBI, open up!
My only wish was that I participated more in fixing the door, because I was busy eating dinner while it happened. So by the time I arrived to help out, Dad had already finished the job. The other weird event that took place was the arrival of a lit helmet in the mail today. It hypothetically rejuvenates hair growth by shining light on the scalp with a certain red wavelength frequency that stimulates blood flow in the capillaries surrounding hair follicles. It sounds absurd, I know, but after consulting with the local cosmetic surgeon's office that specializes in treating baldness, the office assured me this is supposed to be a legitimate treatment method that is symptom-free. If you're wondering, the answer is no, they did not sell the helmet directly to us. We got that from someone else entirely. This sounded better than the pharmaceutical alternatives such as Propecia, whose list of symptoms include short-term memory loss, a risk not worth taking in my opinion. Plus, I didn't pay for it because the plan was to let everyone in the house use it, since everyone who lives here is old, including myself, so it's no skin off my nose if it doesn't work. The last unusual event was my Adobe Creative Cloud application, which started acting up again because it did not recognize that I had already registered CS6 applications on my computer, all of which I have a perpetual license for. This might have to do with my previous battle to get my money back from Adobe for automatically charging me an annual license fee that I mentioned earlier without my consent. I had won the dispute and gotten my funds back, but the application and its interface behaved like I lack the irrevocable infinite license for Adobe CS6. As such, it refuses me access to use or reinstall CS6 software. Instead, it strong-arms me into accepting the Adobe Creative Cloud free trial instead, which was used to make this video, most likely. What happens after that, I cannot say. I hope that the application lets me access my CS6 software again after the free trial. If not, then I will find some sort of a workaround. But other than that, that's gonna wrap up this video. I will see you in the next one, and until then, take care, stay awesome, stay true to yourself, and remember to never give up. Bye, everybody!